Hey there, Michael Kuhlman here. It's a rainy day here in Altamont Springs, Florida. Um, Thanks for clicking on the video. The clip you're about to watch is part of actually like an hour and 40 long minute video that I kind of put together where I reviewed a bunch of other books and authors, the books off my shelf. So if you're interested in this clip, check out that larger video. Thank you for clicking on the video. Let's start with but let's continue on with some nonfiction. So I liked this book too, Sapiens. Yuval Noah Harari, Israeli anthropologist, I want to say. PhD in history from the University of Oxford, lectures at the Department of History and the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. This is a bestseller. You guys have heard about this in the past couple of years. Really interesting book. It's kind of a philosophical book. Goes over the history of humans and our very early, goes through the lineage of evolution of Homo sapien, which I didn't know much about. I went to a school where they didn't. All right, I went to a school where they had two slides on evolution, and one of the slides was everything wrong with evolution, and why it doesn't line up with creationism. So I didn't get a good education. So it's really good that I'm able to read these books now and actually learn about what scientists say and anthropologists. So this guy is really interesting because he'll take it philosophical. So he talks about constructs of, kind of everything's a construct, a little bit postmodern, and like he says, communism is just a construct, money is just a construct, and he goes into more detail and says why it's important for history. But then, the fact that the United States dollar is not tied to a gold value, that's just something that was a big moment in history where you used to be able to trade into the government a U.S. dollar for a certain amount of gold. And then at some point in our history, we decoupled that from the value of gold, and it's just on its own. And that process of just thinking in concepts has historically, there was a moment where that happened, but for all of civilization. And we moved from sort of a hunter-gatherer society, a bartering society, to civilization where we could trade goods and they had valuations. And so if you're interested in that at all, definitely would recommend reading this. What else? There was one other point I wanted to make. Oh, he makes the claim that not colonization. No, it's when you move from a hunter-gatherer society to a what kind of society? Agriculture. Once you move into agriculture, he talks about how it's provable that if you look at the bone structures of people 100 years before and then a couple hundred years after agriculture started to become large, is that people lived longer and they actually had better lives pre-agriculture. You'd go out on the hunt, you'd hunt for your meal, and then you'd come back home, and that was your, week of work in one day. But as soon as agriculture started, that's when people, with their knees, they started to get all jacked up, their shoulders, they started to get hunched over on their backs, and people started working, 100 hours in a week because the crops have to be tended to. And, the aqueducts had to be constructed to deliver water so that this agriculture could keep on going. Now, civilization thrived. I mean, you went from 100 people in a tribe to thousands of people congregating in large cities in whatever 1000 BC. And that's a super interesting. It's he makes the claim that agriculture was a huge setback for humanity when everyone thinks it was a positive thing. I mean, it got us to where we are now, which he says is a different version of the future that we're living in and that we're about to live in is going to be his next book, which I'll talk about now. I'm going to show it to you all. It's Homo Deus. And so Homo Deus is the sequel, and I read that one as well. This talks about how in the future, the very near future, people are going to be genetically altering themselves so that the richest people in society will be able to genetically enhance their kids, their children, and they'll always have a competitive advantage over other humans that aren't able to do that. Or we'll develop an AI that produces its own organic, that'll be the continuation. And so whatever that thing is, that's going to be the next level of Homo sapien. It's going to be Homo Deus, which stands for, like, Deus is God. So, God, man God, or God man, which is a really interesting topic. So I thoroughly enjoyed both these books. I learned a lot. And it's good conversation that you can kind of sound smart to other people.